And now, a show with inappropriate language. The Powell Movement.
Welcome to The Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week is part 2 of my podcast with Daron Rahlves. This episode was recorded a few weeks after the first time Daron and I recorded, and I'm not sure exactly why I'm telling you that. But going into the first podcast with Daron, I really didn't know what to expect. I've always seen Daron at the McConkey event and random other places, and he's always seemed focused and had a smile on his face. But that was all I got from him. I didn't expect him to be as awesome and as interesting as he is. I mean, if I knew that, I would have had him on the show years ago. But D-Money is a fucking badass who is so interesting, and in this episode, we talk about winning, Bode Miller, bad luck at the Olympics, gold at the X Games, and a whole lot more. Before I get into it, I want to ask you to do a few easy things for me. First, please don't be a racist. Second, wear your mask. And third, if you're going to be a racist or not wear a mask and you find yourself getting filmed in a public place and you know the video is going to end up on the internet, please shout out in the middle of your rant, "Listen to the Powell Movement." It could get some more earballs on the podcast. Actually, don't do that. Please do not associate yourself with me at all. Get some help. But for everyone else out there, here's what I would like you to do for me. First, please subscribe to the podcast, follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement, and support my great sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Sports, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's get back into it with D-Money, Daron Rahlves. Since we talked last time, there was one thing that was bothering me about the last interview, because we talked about jet skiing a lot, and there was one jet skiing question that I didn't ask, and I'm going to ask it now. Did you know Vanilla Ice?
I didn't know Vanilla Ice, but I have a good friend that hung out with him quite a bit. Vanilla got into jet skiing right after I left.
Oh, so you were before him.
Yep. Ice Ice Baby wasn't around, and he started riding those sit-downs.
And the sit-down jet skiers, you kind of laugh at them like they're not the real deal?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, he's just the stand-ups, it's more like athletic and dynamic and more skill, for sure. And the runabouts, that was kind of a joke in a way. But then all the pros started going over the runabouts because Kawasaki, Ski-Doo, they're making money, selling those to the general public. So the whole sport changed, and no one was really happy about it, the competitors, except for the paychecks. Then it went back to stand-ups again, started kind of come back. Those are way more fun. Like a sit down, like you can have fun just for a couple of minutes if you got somebody along with you, but it's not quite like the stand-ups.
I can see that. But when we ended the podcast last time, we had talked about you winning the Hahnenkamm, the biggest race in the world. It was downhill. I think it was like 2002, 2003. Was the whole family there to watch you win that race?
My parents were, which is pretty awesome. And then Michelle, we basically got engaged like right around that same time. And she didn't make it over that year. She had other stuff going on. She was working in the ER as a EMT over an incline at that time. So she couldn't get off work. But you know what was cool is for the first few years I was racing, really no one was like showing up in Europe. And then I had a few buddies and like Michelle and family coming out to Beaver Creek. And then they're like, you know what? We want to see the big stage. So Junior, the chamois, he rallied a bunch of friends from Tahoe and Katja Jr., Hitcher, TJ, like Kyle Cruzet, my sister, we had a good crew over there. And they'd come over for a couple of years and share the experience. So I'd catch up with them in the morning for the race. Like, okay, give me a quick play-by-play from last night since I was being good and you guys were having fun.
Yep.
I always get some good stories from Junior. And it put me in a good mood. And it gave me more of an incentive, like obviously you want to throw down for yourself, but if you got friends there, you really want to step up. And, Kitzbühel's a place where you have thousands of people showing up and you want to light it up and put a good performance together just to show them what can be done on skis and how fast you can go. And all of our Tahoe crew had like American California flags up, and there's one spot they're always at. I come to the finish line, big swooping turn off the left ski and come over to the right side and start high-fiving those guys.
That's pretty cool.
It was rad, just having them out there, and it made the difference for sure. I mean, I kind of just more mentally willed myself to another level there, but just having all those other aspects of friends, family, and just such a big race. And it pulls out more of the fire and just skill almost.
Yeah. And with your dad there, we've established he was a total hard ass on you when you were younger, probably throughout your whole life. When you win the race, the biggest race in the entire world, he is there to see it. When you see your dad afterwards, how does he react to you? Is it like beaming pride like you did it, or is it just like another race for Daron?
No. It was a huge deal. And they came back next year too. We had a makeup downhill prior to the weekend, and I got third in that one. I won the Super G, and this is like defending my title in 2003.
Yep.
And Saturday, the big race, I threw down a really good run, and unfortunately got beat by Eberharder, but I was still second that day. And I felt like, I did what I could. He just out-skied me. And to have my parents there for that, that was my best 3-day run. I've won back-to-back downhills in Norway in World Cup, but 3-1-2. And to do it in Kitzbühel, Hahnenkamm was just off the hook, and have my parents and all my friends there. That was probably the biggest 3-day span I've ever had in my life. Just be on top of your game, and big hugs from my mom and dad. And in a way, they put a lot into my life as a skier, committing to come up to Tahoe and going back to Vermont. And I went a year by myself, and my mom moved out because my sister wanted to go to school there as well. My dad would come out every other 2 weeks. They put a lot into it, and it just feels good when that success comes through. But really, everybody talks about it, and it's true. It's like the journey and what you get to do and where you get to travel and how hard you got to work. And I think all that together, for ski racing, if you add it up, it's just a couple minutes. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like 30 minutes of ski racing per season.
Yeah.
You spent your whole year for those 30 minutes of races, so it's not a lot of time. So you got to enjoy the training and the experience, but those are the highlights. Because you want to get tested. Like, okay, what am I made of right now, and what do I got? And so I love being under the pressure, under the gun, and there's more pressure for myself. Like, yeah, you have sponsors and the U.S. national team and my parents, and friends, and they all want you to do well, but there's more like within. I think the best athletes just have that drive within. You see, like now, with Mikaela Shiffrin, she's insane. I was talking to Lila LaPlanga. She lives in Incline and Slovenian, but born in the U.S. Like her dad's Slovenian. But we went on a mountain bike ride, a pretty tough one the other day, and kind of like helping her out a little bit on the mentor side. And she was on the U.S. ski team, got dropped. She's 24 years old, and she got dropped because she's too old in the system. Hasn't scored World Cup points, but she has a NORAM title, so she has a guaranteed World Cup spot for next year in slalom. And the U.S. ski team's like, yeah, you got to do it on your own. And so it's tough, but she's got some grit and some drive in her and a dream to keep going. And I was telling her, like, it took me 2 years out of high school, which is a little longer than most, to make the national team. And some just like give up if they don't make it after that. But I never wanted to look back and think, like, what could I have done? So I kept really pushing hard and did what I could, and had support from my family to do that. And if I see any other athletes that are just still like just hungry and all about it, I like to try and help wherever I can. So she's got a little support from Cliff Bar and some other friends, but we're trying to kind of find some other generous people to step up and help her out just to pay for a cost. It's expensive.
Yeah, you think about the cost of all the travel and everything and being on the U.S. team, which she is not. But what are the perks for you when you get on the U.S. ski team? Are they paying for all your travel, all your meals, all your accommodations, or does it just happen for event days? Because it seems like with the park and pipe guys, it's a little bit different than the race guys, because you guys are way more important in the grand scheme of things, although I think that's changing a little.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anybody's more important than the other, but I think there's maybe a little more focus on the alpine side because the industry is a little more driven, especially in Europe, by that. But the U.S. ski team takes care of all your funding. When I made it on the C team, 100% was taken care of. A couple of years ago, the B team members, which are like top 60 in the world, they had to come up with $25,000 to supplement the cost and pay the U.S. ski team.
Whoa.
Which is kind of a joke, And if you're on the U.S. team, you should be fully funded. That's the way I look at it. But when I was racing, there weren't the resources available from the team like there are now. It's insane. Like if an athlete gets injured, one of the top athletes, there's dedicated physical therapists, for those athletes. There's back to snow coaches. So the regular coaches don't have to like take their time away from building up an injured athlete back to like where they should be so they can focus on their athletes racing, competing. We never had something like that. We were stuffed in vans driving from Zurich all the way to Val d'Isère, France for 7 hours, crammed in a van or maybe in the cargo van. It's nothing like that anymore. I think in a way, it makes you tough and you got to like figure it out. But through my time, things started changing really quickly. And the U.S. ski team covers all like that. Like you said, Mike, training, travel, coaches' fees, all the race fees, everything like that. And I think they estimate it's about 150 grand an athlete.
For a season?
Yeah, a season for World Cup athlete. And then they put more into like the top athletes, say like Mikaela and Ligety and Nyman, all those guys.
Do they stay at better hotels than the rest of the team? Do they put you guys at the Motel 6 and then the Lindsay, Vonns, Bode Millers, Ligaties, they go to a nicer hotel?
No, I mean, we all stayed in our own hotel. I think like even now, say like Mikaela stays in the same hotel as the other girls. Maybe she gets like the suite though.
Okay.
The presidential suite. Yeah.
I tried to get an hour of her time to do a podcast, and her people came back with like the thought that I was absolutely crazy that she would have an hour in her day at all to do an interview. No, I get that professional athletes are busy. A lot of people are busy, but everybody has an hour in their day. And I don't think I was crazy, but she is just that busy and I couldn't talk to her.
It's insane. I was working on an HBO documentary on Lindsay Vonn with TGR. And it's funny because TGR got the job from HBO. Some HBO executives like saw that Andy Irons film.
Yeah.
TGR did. So like, we want those guys. And it wasn't even like a bid to any other production company. So Todd Jones is like, hey man, like we got this and we need you. We've never been to a ski race. We don't know anything about it. We need the inside hookup. We need credibility on the hill. And I was like, right on, this sounds good. I mean, I'm into it. But same thing, like my agent is Lindsay Vonn's agent. The Red Bull guys I worked with when I first started, same guys that are working with her with Red Bull. I know her coaches. And then for me to be able to do a POV run behind her at Copper, in downhill, was so many people and hoops. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. How long has it been since you've been skiing? How much training have you done?
Like, I'm the fucking greatest American downhiller in the world.
That's like, come on. I mean, I'm staying in shape. I can hang. And they're like, well, there's all these questions and they know me. I'm like, all right. So I went out there 2 days before and I get to the top, full downhill setup. Like, Travis, can I jump in behind you? Do a little rip. He's like, yeah, let's just check with the coaches. Like, right on, D. Yeah, no problem. Chase him down. So within 2 minutes, I had the okay on the men's side to do that and followed Travis for the top section. And then the next day, I was following Lindsay and some of the coaches were there and watched and all that. I'm like, all right, you still don't know how to ski. We're good with it. But then I see her at the top at the start and she's like, so what do you want to do? You want to follow me? How close are you going to be? Like, if I crash, don't run me over, this and that. I'm like, Lindsay, just ski your run. Don't worry about me. And I don't know, maybe it's just a different mentality between the men and women, but also there's a lot of riding on it. That last season for Lindsay, she was not 100% physically, but I don't know. You got to just roll with the punches and just have that trust in somebody and all that. But it's a different deal. And I tried to get Mikaela to come over here to the house. She was training at Squaw 2 years ago. And her head coach, Mike Day, I know him well. And I saw him on the hill that day. I was up there skiing around. And like, you guys want to come for a barbecue? Oh, that'd be awesome, man. We love it. Get out of the hotel and coming over and hang out. I'm like, all right. Like, yeah, just round him up. And he calls me later. And he's like, hey, well, I talked to Eileen. And Mikaela doesn't have enough time to come over for barbecue. And this is like in May. They have one more day of training. They're heading down to Mammoth the next day. I'm like, well, let's just chill. Like, we can go early, 6 o'clock. And like, yeah, well, she needs to be in bed by 8:30. If the drive's like half an hour out to Truckee from Squaw, this and that, she's got PT, this other interview. Like, we don't have time and she needs to get to bed.
What a crazy life.
And that's from her mom. I mean, she runs an insane schedule. It works for her. I mean, it wouldn't work for me, but I don't think it'd work for anybody else.
It's like she's a machine, the American Drago.
Yeah, exactly, man. I was a little surprised. And so her ski tech, the team doctor, 2 coaches came over. We just hung out and chilled. And Eileen and Mikaela stayed in Squaw and did their thing. But I know she's under a lot of demand and probably tries to keep it really exclusive.
Yeah, for sure. I just look at it, it's nice to get skiers to do stuff in the ski world, because when you get to be at such a level like Mikaela or a Lindsay or even a Bode for that matter, you don't see them do much stuff with the powders. I mean, although Lindsay was on the cover this year, but it seems like they're just on another level where they're going to be in People and they're going to be in other magazines, and they don't give back to the skiers that actually care about what they're doing.
Yeah, to me it was important, like say after World Cup, to go race at U.S. Nationals. I did everything I could. I think I missed one because I was hurt, but I did all the U.S. Nationals, and it's a grind, through the whole year. And it's like, okay, I like to just go home and take a break, but you don't see Lindsay or Bode or Mikaela show up at Nationals. It's just sad in a way, because I wanted to be there to see the younger athletes, get them fired up, maybe share some of the experience we had for the season and the World Cup, and make them earn a national title if they're going to win one. I think it's pretty sad that it's not demanded. The Norwegians, the Austrians, those guys go to their nationals. Why didn't Lindsay show up? Oh, she's too tired, whatever. We're all tired. Just keep going. But to me, I wasn't just a ski racer. I was a skier. I went to Alaska after World Cup finals or U.S. Nationals. And to me, that was just part of what I love to do.
People thought you were absolutely crazy. I think you went with the Chris brothers. I forget the movie that you're filming for, Unnecessary something. I can't remember what it was.
It was a Rage Films, my first movie I was up there in Alaska with. And yeah, to me, it was just something fun to do on skis, something else.
But you're in your prime and you're risking everything where, Zach and Reggie are great, but they were never going to be the face of the team, which you eventually are going to be. But right in the middle of that is when you go to Alaska. And yeah, it shows that you're a skier, but if you probably look at the race coaches and stuff and they're talking, they're probably like, Ralves is crazy. He's in the prime of his career and he's doing this crazy stuff in Alaska.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was skiing. Then I'd ride moto up to the end of July. I didn't want to risk it any longer, but May to July. And it was a battle with me with the team. The U.S. ski team, they don't pay you. So you're not under contract, restricted. I remember talking to Steve Young with the 49ers. We're doing a ski event. He wasn't skiing. He's like, oh, I'm not allowed to in my contract to ski. He's like, I'd love to, but I can't, well, you get paid a lot, and the U.S. team, they can't really tell me what to do because they're not paying me, but companies I'm representing, they could probably have a word to say or something like that. But for me, I could bust my ass in the gym and be super strong, but I needed a mental edge to stay sharp through the summer and to have that transfer over to skiing. And to me, moto gave that to me. When you're at a track and your side's up a triple and you kind of look at it a couple times and finally just go and do it. And you got to be all in. It was something that really kept me on point, kept my mind sharp. It was a good way to test myself. But for Alaska, they never said anything about that. And I tried actually to get Mikaela to do a Warren Miller film. Those guys from Warren Miller were like, hey, let's try and get you, Mikaela, up there. We got Atomic Connection. It'd be awesome. So I reached out and it's yeah, I got to talk to my mom about it. And
how old is she?
At that point, she was 21.
Okay. When I hear I've talked to my mom about that, it always makes me ask, how old are you? But that's
me.
Yeah.
But, her mom was running her program. And I mean, every day, Mike, it's crazy. Every single day is just scheduled out.
It's working. She's dominant and it's incredible to watch her, but it just seems like a sad life almost.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's got highlights too.
It does, but I just saw this thing on the news yesterday. I guess there's an HBO documentary, The Weight of Gold. It was Michael Phelps. He was kind of the anchor of it, and just talking about depression and things that happen to Olympic athletes after the Olympics, especially for those guys. For ski racing, I wasn't about the Olympic cycle. I was about every year, but some are about the Olympic cycle. A lot of sports, and I didn't watch the film, but just talking about the depression they go through, and once it's over, and what do you do next? But to me, I was like, shit, I'm going free skiing. I'm going to go ride moto. I'm going in the water. I'm going to have a life, hang with my friends and all that stuff. It wasn't just ski racing.
Well, you retire at one point only to work harder everywhere else. Before we talk about retiring, we have to talk about sponsors because I like talking about that. And when you're a racer, it seems like the dollars are exponentially higher than the comparable free skier. Your race prime lines up with Seth Morrison's Big Mountain prime, time-wise. And where Seth could make over $100,000, but not much more from a ski sponsor, and I know that because I was his ski sponsor. What can a top racer make from a ski sponsor? I mean, you hear about all the money going to race and none of it going to free ski, And, on the Mikaela level, I'm sure it's 7 figures easy. But where were you when you're the top American downhiller? What are you able to make from a ski sponsor? If you don't mind asking your ballpark.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, we got to a point with Atomic. Atomic was taking out insurance policies, capping what they had to pay of €1 million.
Whoa.
So like Lloyd's of London was like insuring them. They just got to the point where I could say in my prime time, it was insane. I mean, all these guys are on Atomic. Yeah, Lasse Chus, Herman Meyer, Eberharder, me, Bode, Kush, pretty much just all the guys crushing it.
You're guaranteed podiums every race.
Yeah. And so Atomic is like, whoa, like we can't keep spending this amount of money. So we're taking insurance policies out to cap at €1 million. And those were getting reached. So it's insane. Like Herman Meyer in his prime, I heard he was making like 8 to 10 mil.
Jesus Christ. But not from Atomic, right?
No. Like all sponsors.
Yeah, all the sponsors.
So a ski sponsor, I mean.
How much could Herman make from Atomic, you think, in his prime?
Well, he went over €1 million a couple of years because then they started having to pay or take those insurance policies out.
Because of the victory schedules?
Yeah.
And how far down does the money go? When we talk about races, Herman Meyer, maybe he wins, he gets a shit ton of money. But do you get money all the way down to like 20th place?
No. If you're an athlete coming up through the ranks, like when I first started, like I was getting paid for a top 15, but it'd be like $1,000.
Right.
10 to 15. But like once you start really establishing yourself and you're like going for wins, it's like 70 grand for a win.
Oh, Jesus. So Hahnenkamm, you win the downhill, you're walking with 70 grand plus what everybody's matching?
Yeah, like pretty much just you win the Hahnenkamm or big races like that, there's a big trickle effect, right? Like you get a lot of other sponsors from there. But I'd say just what you walk from that one race day is, over 200 grand.
Now it's time for me to take a sponsor break. And I love Stanley. They have been around for over 100 years, and they have always stood behind their products because they're the best. I'm not just saying that. I use the water bottles and pint glasses daily, and they really do keep things hotter and colder for longer than the competition. In my opinion, at least an hour longer. Stanley has supported the show for a while, and I want to keep it that way. So I'm asking for your help. What I want you to do is use my code with Stanley to save 30% on the best products on the market. What you need to do is head on over to stanley-pmi.com and go shopping. They have so many products over there, and hopefully I'll have one of everything at some point in my life. But you need to go shopping over there. You enter the code DRINKFAST, that's all one word, at checkout. You're going to get 30% off your Stanley stuff, and it helps the podcast as well. So thank you very much for that. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon, another brand that I love. And I know I said it about Stanley and I'm saying it about 10 Barrel, and both of those things are true. With 10 Barrel, they support so many different things in ski, snowboard, and bike that when I went to the store before they even sponsored the podcast, I would buy 10 Barrel just because of that. And then when they started sponsoring me, I realized exactly how much they actually do for action sports. They have an A-list team of athletes across ski, snowboard, and bike. They have a big money event series in their Hella Big Air events, and they give back money to the Surfrider Foundation and protect our winners. They do so much, and they have a beer for everyone. I find myself drinking a lot of Profuse Juice, a hazy IPA. Next time you're at the store, I encourage you to pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel and support the beer that supports the active mountain lifestyle more than anyone, the 10 Barrel Brewery. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. In your prime of your race career, who are the brands that pay you?
The big brands were Atomic and Red Bull for me.
Okay, and Red Bull owns your head?
Yep. And then Giro and Reusch and Spider, and I had some deals with like 24-Hour Fitness, Oral Wheat Bread, some stuff like that, like out of the industry.
Are those bigger deals when you go outside of the industry?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And those are on Olympic cycles. So those would be 2 years out from the Olympics is kind of what you'd be getting. And it'd be rare to kind of retain something like that. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, it seems like there's a lot more non-endemic sponsors. Like the U.S. ski team, we had, in my early career, we had Chevy Trucks as a sponsor. And I could not get a deal on a Chevy truck through the U.S. ski team. I got a better deal going up to like Quincy to the dealership up there than the U.S. ski team gave me. And now it's like, all these guys and girls on the national team are Land Rover ambassadors, and they get cars, and they had them with Audi as well. And It's like, man, some aren't even like at the level that we were at, and they're getting free cars to use for the whole time that they're home, whatever, and then over in Europe. And I ended up doing, like, when Chevy was still the U.S. ski team sponsor, I had my own Audi deal in Europe. And so I just kind of did a side deal over there. Like, I'm not going to get a Chevy car or whatever. Fine. I'm reaching out to Audi. They're like one of the title sponsors for this World Cup. And they were stoked that I could be driving one of their cars. I was stoked to have a RS6 to rip around in over there.
Yeah.
Best cars, in my eyes, in the world, just made for the mountains and the Autobahn. So the money thing, it didn't trickle down too far past top 10. If you weren't in the top 10 in the world, you weren't making much. You might be able to like make some money to pay the bills and everything, but you had to be top 10 to be really making a decent living where you wouldn't have to stress on anything.
Well, how about those guys that aren't winning, that aren't in the top 10? Like, are there those race kind of ski bums out there that are just putting everything they have into it and muscling as much money together as they can to go on the tour? Like, they're perennial finishing at 25, but they're going to spend 3 years living on couches trying to make it in the race world. Does that happen, or is that more just in the other side of skiing?
No, it happens too in racing. It's tough. Just talking about Lila, she has a World Cup spot. She's earned that NORAM title. Like, it's the highest level of domestic racing in the U.S., just below World Cup, and the team's not funding her. She's got to come with basically $150,000 to support her training, a coach, a ski tech, and that's only slalom. She's not doing downhill Super GS, which is a lot more traveling, a lot more time, at hotels and at big venues. So there's ones that are just scrounging. I mean, unfortunately, you have some top athletes that they have to have a job in the summertime to make some extra money. And that takes away from my training program. I was training twice a day and then just trying to recover and do the right thing. Like 100% is all about trying to be at that highest level. The other thing to note too, the U.S. ski team is the only national team in ski racing that the athletes don't get paid by the national team. And so it's all privately funded. They cover costs. But even Canadians, they get a monthly stipend from the government, depending on what they're ranked. And they could be getting $5,000 a month, just to help cover rent and food and all that stuff. But the Austrians, I heard Hermann Maier, he wasn't even paying Austrian tax. He was considered an ambassador for the country. So they're like, you're making all this money. You don't have to pay the government. You're doing all this stuff for Austria too. This is another thing. And the Austrians, they make money. Even a top 60 in the world athlete on the Austrian team, they have car deals. They got headgear sponsors. Those guys are making enough money to live off of, but not even close for an American.
I guess the good thing for you is that you come from money, so you don't have to think about the struggle. I mean, it's a nice opportunity that you have. You don't have to think about the struggle of trying to make all these trips. So the money that you get from contracts and stuff, it's not like you have to negotiate or hey, I'm going to go to this brand for more money, because money's not something that's driving you, and it's something that's going to make things happen. You have a great job. You're doing well. Your wife has a job too. I think she does Bar Effect or something like that. But you do well. From what I've heard, you have a shit ton of toys. I don't know if you still have the 68 Camaro, to Harleys, to jet skis, sleds, I'm sure snow bikes. How many garages are in the Ralves' family right now?
We've trimmed down to 3. I had 7 in the old house, and they were full. So I got rid of a lot of stuff. It was just collecting too much stuff. But I just parking my truck and Michelle's car, or Audi, in the garage. And I have one garage space for the bikes.
Do you have the Camaro still?
I'm really fortunate. No, I got rid of that because we moved and didn't have space to put it in there. I didn't want to get storage, and I wasn't really using it that much. But I had it for about 10 years, that car. But it's nice to simplify and just have less. And I have a Harley still. I ended up building a Harley with my buddy Coop here in Truckee, and that was the year I won the Hahnenkamm, and that was kind of like a little bonus to myself. And it's a nice full custom FXR, but I hardly ever ride it anymore. If I have free time, I'm riding moto or mountain biking or on the water or doing stuff with the kids and the family. So it's hard to find time to do it all, but I was never having to stress about covering costs, which was a big burden that was off of my chest.
Yeah.
That a lot of other athletes have to face, and it's tough. The financial strain is really kind of one thing that dictates if you're going to continue in the sport or not.
Yeah.
And especially if you lose that funding from the U.S. ski team, it's really difficult, and you got to like work extra hard and try and do fundraising. And you see all these GoFundMe's or just fundraisers are set up. And in a way, it's kind of good because these athletes get in touch with their local community a little more and gets support. And you don't need to have one big $100,000 donor. If you have a ton of like, $5,000 to $10,000 donors that help you out, that helps cover costs. But it's tight, for a lot of these racers, these athletes, especially if you're not making money from brands. Your overall success is tough. But for me, I was never chasing money. I was always focused on the best equipment. And I feel like I aligned myself up with the best skis and a helmet and the people around me that I could find. And I wasn't trying to like run after different like ski brands so I could make another $100,000 or something like that. To me, I wanted to win. And I wasn't looking for the paycheck where like you look at Bode, like he ran around everywhere and made some great money, but I like being loyal too. And I'm still fortunate. I mean, I'm still with Atomic. I signed with them in 2000.
Yep.
That year, I won my first World Cup after being like fourth, another brand, like kind of in there. But Atomic is what helped me get there. And I still do stuff with them to this day. And it's like a family, but it's hard. I mean, I remember going to Red Bull after I finished ski racing. I was going to do ski cross and free ride and all that, like big mountain stuff. And I took over my own negotiations and I said, I'll just try and go for half what I was getting from Red Bull. And they just laughed at me. You're a free skier now. You're not coming close to that much. And I'm like, really? Come on. I'm like, well, I mean, my background, all that. Yeah, we just don't support that side of the sport that much. That was a big wake-up call for me. I mean, it was hard, taking on that like financial side because I wanted to have a good relationship with every brand as far as equipment goes, product development, and then have somebody else do the dirty work. That's why I'm an agent. And
Yep.
He did a great job, but now I'm not going to be making that much money. Might as well take it upon myself and not pay that 20% commission. And I have the time to do it. And so it was a big game changer. Now I have a ton of brands I'm associated with and make a little bit of money off these other brands. I just picked up Cetus, insoles, and they do like boot heaters with thermic and all that.
Yep.
As a brand ambassador, and they have some great product, but it's like a lot of little stuff. Yeah, it's just trying to do my part, but I like to be associated with stuff that I use and I can benefit from.
No, I get that. And one thing that we didn't talk about is being a racer, you do need to have support as well. So there's like a team Ralves that is traveling with you, and I'm sure it's small, but is it just you and a race tech that's traveling everywhere, or are there more?
When I was racing, I was with the whole team.
Do you have a personal race tech?
Yeah, I have my own personal service guy.
You pay him out of your pocket?
No, that was funded by Atomic.
Okay.
So if you're a B team member, usually it's funded by the U.S. ski team. If you're A team member, top 30 in the world, you're getting a factory provided tech.
Okay.
So that right there, that's another, if they're like just bumming it, and trying to like just make it by, it's probably about $80,000 for a ski tech because you pay for travel and they're probably making about $60,000 for the year. For the top guys, they're making over $100,000, I'd say, for a ski tech, top factory guy. And I started like bonuses too, like if I made money, prize money, 10% would go to my ski tech. And I'm so surprised. Like there's so many athletes that don't do that. And it's like, man, you got to appreciate those guys. They work their tails off for all this. And if we do well, like I want to kick down some money to my tech.
Yeah.
But I was really surprised. Even some like really top end skiers, like not paying their techs prize money.
That's not cool by any means, but I'm sure that happens. Some people aren't cool.
And I felt like I never was doing enough. I'd be in there and I was, always wiping skis down, helping out, like just checking stuff out. And it was nice. Like I went from, having to do all that work on my own, bagging the skis up, hustling around, trying to drag them around, all that stuff, to even my ski poles were getting taken care of for me. I just had to worry about my ski boots and my clothes.
And like when you travel, how many pairs of skis are you taking with you to a race? I mean, because race skis, I would think, are something that you break in and then they're really personal and you want to be on that ski as much as possible. Do you have like 2 or 3 pairs of skis that you use and travel with 7?
At every race venue, we probably have like 8 pairs of downhill skis. It usually be like a downhill and a Super G race.
Okay.
So just 8 pairs of downhills, 4 pairs of Super Gs, and probably 4 pairs of GS is what I travel with, or my ski tech would. But he would almost after every weekend go right back to the factory, and we'd have a quiver of other skis sitting there. And you just get to know, like, these guys know like what ski as far as the base on the construction is going to work better at this next venue, and then keeping tabs on conditions. And you might have a couple of skis there that are ready for like new snow or old snow or colder temps, warmer temps. Like there's a lot of stuff, a lot of variables. So the big part of like equipment, the number of skis was like more in New Zealand in August, and then Chile September. We'd have like 20 pairs of downhill boards in Chile that we're skiing on 5 different pairs a day, and then maybe bring one of those back and bring another 4 out the next day. And you're kind of just skiing on every ski. You're doing ski testing. You're whittling them down, and then you get to like that maybe that quiver of like 8 to 10 pairs of downhill skis for the season that you're kind of rotating through.
Okay. So 2003, you win the biggest downhill in the world. I think you start the next season at Beaver Creek, and it's Birds of Prey at Beaver Creek. Is it the next most challenging downhill in the world after Hahnenkamm, or is there something in between that?
Beaver Creek's awesome, but it's so smooth and it's got a lot of challenging terrain, has it all. But I mean, the hardest race out there is Bormio. Physically, that's the toughest one. It's like always rough, hard snow, relentless. There's no chance that you can relax anywhere. At Kitzbühel, there's a road you could kind of like settle in and relax on for a little bit off the top, 35 seconds off Saalhung. But Bormio is gnarly. It's like physically, that's the toughest one. So Bormio is number one, probably Vangen too, because it's 2.5 minutes, and then Kitzbühel.
Okay.
But Kitzbühel is number one as far as like the mental toughness it takes. And, just the level of disaster that could come up from making a mistake on the hill. You're tired at the bottom. You're in it like a minute 30, and you're dropping into one of the toughest sections on the World Cup, that side hill traverse after Hausberg. And that's where you see a lot of guys fall apart, make mistakes or big crashes. So that's kind of what separates Kitzbühel from anything else, is just the mental and the physical, kind of like how treacherous it is, I guess, at the bottom. And even if it's the same terrain, snow conditions are a little different. And every year it's a little bit different. And so that's what was always interesting to me, was how unique these race hills are, and especially in downhill, because you're racing the mountain. You don't have like a course like in front of you just making quick turns and like say slalom or GS. You're running the mountain down the hill. And I had this like Swiss ski tech that was a little more on the spiritual side. He's like, man, you gotta like be dance at the mountain. You gotta be flowing with the mountain. You gotta find where you can work together with the mountain and not fight against it, and I always kind of took that to heart, where, yeah, it's like water flowing down the mountain. You take the path of least resistance and you try and milk as much as you can out of the gravity. And I put a lot of different scenarios through my head online and tactics. And it's interesting. Like, you'll gain more speed by going straight down and swooping like a turn, like at the bottom, like a big pendulum kind of arc, than you will if you go straight point A to point B. Physics, there's like experiments of like 2 balls, one on a straight track, one on like a nice arc path that actually is longer distance. But that longer distance arc path is going to be, that ball is going to come out faster and beat that one that goes completely straight, like a 45-degree angle or something. I kind of liked it, all that stuff. I was looking at physics and trying to find ways I can get an advantage, being faster with like line selection. Then it comes down to how well you ski. And as soon as you see skis throwing snow or bouncing around, you're losing time. So we did a ton of super high speed, slow-mo filming of the skis, actually, when we're training down South America, and just testing the new constructions and trying to get those things as quiet as possible. And the boot setup, plate, binding. There's a lot of little things that come together to make a ski perform at its best. And we were looking at all those details.
And all those details help you win that 2003 Birds of Prey at Beaver Creek. I believe Bode was in that one as well. And a theme throughout your career that might have started right around then was you and Bode. It seemed like a rivalry. He was the bad boy racer. You were the underdog small guy. Is it a real rivalry, or is it something that the media makes up?
I mean, there's tension. There was rivalry amongst us, and we worked well together on snow and with equipment. He was on Atomic as well for a few years, the highest time of our competitive career, both of us. And he was really analytical. He would really nitpick and just analyze stuff like crazy. I do a little bit of that, but I was more of a feel kind of guy, and he'd think it through a lot. But yeah, I mean, I had to attribute a lot of my success to Bode because of the intensity he brought in training. And even in training days, just with the U.S. ski team, I wanted to be the fastest every day. And he did too. And we'd throw down. And it definitely upped my game. I'm sure it upped his too. But we got to the point where we knew like whoever's fastest that day, that'd be a really competitive run amongst the rest of the world where we could probably win a race, a World Cup race. Before that, I never knew where I was at. And we had a lot of 1-2s. We actually tied for a World Cup win, which is crazy, just tying for a World Cup win with anybody but your teammate.
Yeah.
But I didn't like being second to him and like vice versa. So it just bred a lot of like internal competition, intensity, and I think it worked in our favor.
Now it's time for me to take my final sponsor break. And as you heard in my interview with Daron Rahlves, Atomic skis were the key to changing up his skiing and making him a champion. Peter Glenn Ski and Sports has a full array of skis and boots from Atomic that will make you a better skier. In particular, check out the Bent Chetler 100 and 120, all mountain free skis designed by Chris Ben Chetler himself, all the way down to the graphics. This year's skis are the same footprint as last year with incredible new hand-drawn graphics by Chris. Plus, later this season, Peter Glenn will have a limited number of the Bent Chetler Grateful Dead skis that are hard to come by. Check out their full Atomic collection over at peterglenn.com right now. Those are my sponsors. Let's get back into the podcast. And when you look at how you guys were marketed, did it ever bother you that he was like the bad boy, and being that he was marketed that way, there was probably a lot more earning that went his way because he was more of a personality, where you were kind of a novelty of like the smaller badass skier who people are inspired by because you prove that anybody can do it?
Yeah, I didn't care. I was just like out there like trying to get the most out of myself. And there's a lot of baggage, I guess, that was along with Bode. I remember Vangen come down for a train run, and there was all that talk about him skiing drunk one time or racing drunk, actually did really well. And it was right before the Olympics, and Bill Marolt, our CEO, flew out, to have a meeting with Bode. And I'm getting asked by the media, what do you think about this with Bode? I'm like, that's just, you got to talk to him about it. Like, he won't talk to us. I'm like, okay, that's the end of your story then. They're like prying for a lot of stuff, and I wasn't one to stir up any shit, but Bode loved to do that, and just, it got to the point where it made me more focused on how I want to treat others and people, like fans, by seeing stuff that I didn't like from others.
Well, you were the dude that would sit and sign autographs for 4 hours after an event, and he was the dude who would not. He would just leave 2 minutes after and be gone, right?
Oh, yeah. Not quite. I mean, not 4 hours, but if kids are run up to you or anybody's run up to you for a photo or a signature, I want to oblige. I looked up to a lot of athletes like that too, and they took the time. It made an impact on me. And yeah, it's hard. Sometimes you just got to go. And it's like, sorry, I'm done. But I tried to accommodate, whoever else was like excited to get that autograph, that picture and all that. And in Europe, it's crazy. It's like all the time. You go to any restaurant, go to a bar or whatever. Like, I wouldn't mind having some public time, but you end up like holing up in your team hotel. And I had a nice bus on tour, so I could just go to that and have people just like crowd around it. And I'd sign like maybe 50 signing cards and hand to my bus driver guy and just like hand those out. And there's a certain amount of time that you need to put in for others, but then you got to really focus on yourself. It's selfish being an athlete, you have to look out for yourself and make sure you have like time to do what you need to do. But I still wanted to put as much into it as I could, for others, and took the time to do that.
Okay. And then with Bode, were you guys friends? Like if it was a powder day and you guys had a day off, would you go out and shred together? Or did you guys not hang out off the hill?
No, we didn't hang off the hill at all. He wasn't really interested in free skiing. I never like once free skied with him.
Huh.
He had a pretty heavy load though. I mean, he was doing combined, so he's trained slalom. I was taking off, and he had a lot of stuff he was doing, but he had his own crew over with him all year, and I kind of had my own like friends over, and I was more of like a team player, kind of more with the younger guys and going to all the team meetings, and Bode would show up when he wanted to.
Okay.
And so we kind of kid around. It was like the Bode show a lot, but I didn't care. It was like, whatever, man. Like we never like picked up the phone and talked to each other since we finished ski racing. And Then I was flying over to Europe for this Red Bull Hooten rally, this race over in Santon. I was flying to Munich and I go by Garmisch. I see Bode in the airport and we sat down and talked for like an hour before our flight. Like nothing changed.
Huh.
It was kind of cool, like to actually talk about life. And I mean, my kids, his kids, he was actually traveling back over with two of his kids. We didn't need to stay in touch, but once we saw each other, we could pick it up right from where we left off, about how things were and just more family life and then what's going on in the ski world. And that's when he was still racing. I think it was like around like 2014, 15, I think was his last year.
Yep.
But, it's like the guy is an incredible athlete. He trained like crazy. He was super strong and tough and little things like ankle strength. I never even thought about like training my ankles. And I remember like him putting so much time into like ankle strength exercises. I'm like, man, that makes sense. And so I picked that stuff up and did little things like that. Like, you're not just trying to get your core and your legs strong. Think about like how strong your ankles need to be just to hold on a clean edge at high speed through rough terrain.
Yeah.
And so he did train really hard and he screwed around a little bit and he played the system. He'd go out in bars and stay up pretty late, but he'd be drinking orange juice and soda water.
Huh.
He wasn't like drinking alcohol. Like it was almost like a front in a way. But there's other times where he'd be letting loose.
Definitely got a lot of press out of it. And when I think of you and him, if you look at it, I think you had like 28 podiums, maybe 12 wins, something like that. He did better at the Olympics than you did. And who's the better all-around skier and who's the better ski racer?
I mean, obviously he won overall titles. I wouldn't like to say somebody's better for winning the Olympics. That's just any given day. But he beat me on my one that hurt the most is World Championships 2005. That was my hill in Bormio, and I had like 2 wins already, and he beat me. And I was second that day. I mean, we were 1-2 at World Champs ahead of the rest of the world, but that was like the worst loss I've ever had.
I mean, it's got to suck when you get second place and you leave the event pissed, where a lot of people would be stoked to be on the podium.
It kind of stung a little more, even though it was my own teammate. I wanted to be the best in the U.S. for sure, and then best in the world too. But in one way, it's cool if you get beat by your teammate, but in the other way, it sucks because you're the second best guy on your own team. But he was incredible on snow and definitely, like I said, up my game. But we were just more good teammates than we were friends, just put that way. And he's done a lot for the sport. It's been awesome. I mean, brought a lot of people in, and the guy was he was all in and super intense. And I don't really have like an idol one per se, but I respect those that throw it down and take a chance and not willing to lose. That's what you need to have. And that's inspiring.
You've always been willing to take a chance, and part of taking chances is injury. And while skiers are known for blowing knees, hips have been your problem, it seems like. And I guess that's what happens when you crash at 70 miles an hour. The first time you're hurt is like 1998. And what happens there?
Man, I was testing skis, Super G skis in New Zealand. And we had like 5 pairs of boards, and it snowed that day. And there was like a big berm of like fresh snow off the track and flat light. And I made a mistake. Like one pair of skis, the bindings weren't adjusted correctly. And I came in this compression and just lit this turn up and hit a little chuck hole, and ski came off. I'm going about 60, and I tried to pull out of the course, and my right ski is on. I hit this like knee-high powder berm and just wad up and just tomahawk, and that ski didn't come off. I ended up like popping my hip, and that was like kind of a series of like I had 6 hip dislocations. I had 3 in my competitive like years, but then I had 8 years without any problems because I think I was just really strong. I was still crashing here and there. And then when I got born to like ski cross and free skiing, I wasn't training as hard, and I had 3 more that came along. And I've never blown my knee out. That's super rare for a ski racer.
Yeah.
And so maybe genetically, the knee's really strong. I had an issue with my hip. I actually had just below the socket of the femur, on the neck of the femur, I had a really thick calcified section of that bone. And so when I get in these positions in a big angle, my knees are kind of up, like an internal rotation. That bone of the femur was like pushing on the hip socket where it'd leverage out, and it would just take an impact to like nail it out the back, posterior dislocation. And I ended up finding this guy down in Reno, going through like all the top hip doctors, but this guy, Dr. Paul Schauner down in Reno that Franz Weber hooked me up with. he came up with this different technique of looking at hips through these x-rays and the bone. And he's like, this is what your problem is right here. Like, we got to shave this down. And that was in 2013. And once I got surgery, it hasn't been a problem. So been pretty lucky, you know, with injuries. And that's where, I mean, I think how I trained and the flexibility that I have was a really key factor in keeping me injury free through my career.
You know, the one thing about your hips is that by hurting your hip, we're not going to talk about it much, but that's how you met your wife. So you end up wrecking yourself. It does put an asterisk on your career. Like, is he going to come back as strong as he was before? Which you do 6 times, but your wife's like the front desk person at your physio place, and the rest is history there. So it sucks hurting your knees, but it's great to meet your future wife at the place that you're getting rehabbed at.
That was a positive, by the way. I'll add to that.
Yeah. And so one thing I really haven't brought up, and I've kind of saved it so we could talk about all the Olympics, is the Olympics. And according to the general public, this is the biggest race in ski racing. To you, it might be the Hahnenkamm at Kitzbühel, but the general public looks at the Olympics as the big deal. You get your first chance in 1998, and the first one you can't say you choked at all. It was the Rossignol days. You still hadn't started to put together full races by any means. You're good in sections, and you get 7th at Super G. That's promising. And when you leave those games, I would think that you're pretty stoked and hopeful, like, hey, I did pretty well, and my next Olympics, I'm going to get a medal. Is that kind of how it feels when you leave that first games?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was blown away how big the Olympics are. I mean, you just hear about it, but to actually be in it, I was like, wow, this is like next level, and a lot of media attention.
Is it emotional when you hear the opening ceremonies and stuff?
Yeah, I actually didn't go to opening ceremonies. I was held back. Our system wasn't the greatest because as a Super G skier and GS skier, like, to get a little more time on the hill would have been beneficial to me. So normally I was on World Cup, I was doing training runs in downhill. This is before I started racing downhill, but I do training runs in downhill to get comfortable on the hill with the snow and the terrain for Super G. And the team, they decided not to bring me over for downhill training, which has become a bummer. But I show up and I get 7th, and that's pretty respectable and solid race. And the next couple of years, I won world championships in Super G at St. Anton, Austria, 3rd in Kitzbühel. We go in the '02 Olympics, and I'm pretty much like lined up to like podium in downhill. And
your favorite?
Yeah, and I made a mistake. I ended up pre-jumping the big jump too much, a little too late, and just soared off that jump. And I lost all my time in the air on that. Like, went another like 60 feet past anybody else. Just that hang time blew it for me.
And do you know while you're in the air, like, I just fucked myself?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, like, oh, no. You know, you're always faster on the ground. And in training, I would kind of like maybe stiff leg a few jumps and try and go a little further, you know, for fun. But in racing, like, you want to try and like make a move and absorb and suck up any terrain as much as possible to be back on snow as fast as you can. So, yeah, that happened. And then '06, I had the most wins of anybody in downhill.
Yeah, you coming in left like 3 wins.
3 wins, you know, and some sick tracks like Beaver Creek, Bormio, Vangen. I was 3rd in Kitzbühel. Everything's rolling. I win the training run. I won on that hill, actually, in Sestriere 2 years before. We always have like a test race, World Cup race before the Olympics, like 2 years out.
Yep.
Make sure everything's good. And I won that race. So I was like, this is mine. And the craziest thing happened to me. We had some new skis from Atomic. Bode convinced my tech. He actually sent his ski tech into my bus to talk me into trying these new skis in the afternoon, the day before the Olympic downhill race, since I never even skied on them.
Huh.
And he's like, well, Bode thinks that you'd be really fast on these. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm fast on my other stuff. I'm good. And he just kept talking over and over, like they had to try and get me on these skis. I'm like, screw it. Okay, bring him out. I got out of my bus, went on this like slalom training hill, and I'm making downhill turns through like 5 different courses, hopping ruts and all that stuff just to get a feel for the skis. And like, hey, I'm good with anything. You just pull out the fastest ski we got, right? And I get to the start. Bodie's 2 guys in front of me. He comes down. He's like off the podium, and those guys just lose it. And I'm in the gate, like got my skis. I got 45 seconds to go. Like I'm buckled down, my boots, everything ready to go. And I feel these hands grab my shoulders, slide me back, kick me on my skis. Another pair of skis gets thrown down right there. And like, you're going on these. I look at my ski tech. I'm like, for real? Okay. Boom, switch over. And then it was like 15 seconds to reset and kick out of the gate.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, that's never happened. I've never seen it happen to anybody. And my ski tech that I was with for 2 years there, he's Austrian. So some people are like, oh, that was full sabotage, The
Yeah.
Austrians paid him off. I don't believe that. My wife kind of believes it a little bit, but I ended up getting put on a different pair of skis because Bode actually blew it at the bottom. He like just boned this one turn, lost some time. They thought it was the ski prep of the skis. So they switched me to the backup pair we had up there at the start. And I went out and put a good run down. I wouldn't say it was my best run, but I put a solid run down. I think I came across the line like in 7th at that point, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is my race. I was devastated. I just wanted to freaking snap right there in the finish, but just whatever. It's the way it goes. So sucked it up and saw the analysis. So every downhill has like 6 or 7 different sections. They give you speed in, speed out, different split times on sections. And that track was like really fun, flowy track, a lot of good terrain, but it had like a lot of man-made snow in it. And all those sections, especially man-made snow, like waxing has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, you can feel it when you get over that man-made snow.
Yeah, and the skis, like, I mean, that's where the skis really shine if they're done correctly. I was losing like 3/10 in all those. I was like 3/10 back in almost every section there. And then there's one pretty gnarly, nasty section, like big turns, fast speeds, good terrain. And they called it Agua Minerale because they put so much water down on this track. It was like an ice rink.
Yep.
And that's where skis, like the base doesn't really matter. It's more like how you ski it.
Mm-hmm.
And I won that section. There's like a 24-second section. I won by 6/10. So I was crushing. I was skiing really good.
It's all the skis that slowed you down.
Yeah. And it wasn't enough to make up time I lost everywhere else. But I came up to the ski room and saw Burglar, my ski tech. I'm like, dude, what the hell happened today? And his head was down. And he's like, I'm sorry. We thought Bode was on a slow prep and you were on the same setup there. And we switched out to something else, which was our mistake. So I just basically lost a chance at one of my biggest races because of equipment prep. God, I mean, that still, like, that burns to this day. That was 2006.
Oh, yeah, I think you'd think about that the rest of your life.
You know what? You can let it, like, eat you up a little bit, and it has a couple times, but it's like, I gave everything I had. I had no doubts that I didn't try and have the best program put together for that. My best performance there, and it didn't happen, and that's the way it goes. So I called my season at the beginning of that year. Like in Beaver Creek at the press conference, I told him I was going to retire at the end of the season. And like, how can you say that? Like, look, you have a great year. You can't just retire. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm done. But I'm going to make every moment count and every race special. And that's what I did the whole year and had a really good season. And the Olympics were just not part of that great season.
So with the Olympic race career over, you start with a 7th in Super G when you're 24 years old, and you've got to be stoked about that. When you retire, that 7th is your best finish in the Olympics. Was there something about the Olympics that just got into your head?
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Like, Nate Holland and I, like, we joke and laugh about it all the time. How just the Olympics always, like, fell apart for us. But it was one of those big races. It was a good opportunity. It was a time to, like, shine as an athlete and showcase your sport more. And I'd say, Winter Olympics, men's downhill is the premier, event, and a chance to do one more thing, like add one more accomplishment to the career. And man, I didn't even get a medal. And so it was definitely a disappointment that way. But going back to what I said, it's like I gave everything I had, and it wasn't for lack of trying. And so that's just how it goes. It wasn't in the cards. Something didn't work out. And then I went to ski cross, and all of a sudden, man, it's an Olympic sport. I'm like, I got a chance now. They come out, I had a second in World Cup, an X Games win, and blew my hip out at X Games like 2 weeks before, and hustled to get myself back in shape and race up in Vancouver. And in like the second heat, I get wiped out, and that was it. It was nuts. Well, it just wasn't made to happen.
No, but when you say that you wrecked your hip at the X Games and you're able to compete 2 weeks later, is it something where you're allowed to take pain-killing injections or something to get you out on the course, or is that not allowed?
You could get a doctor's approval. It's got to be approved by the International Olympic Committee.
Yep.
And all that. So I end up doing this PRP, platelet-rich plasma.
Okay.
Usually you get one every 2 weeks from an injury. I had like one every other day.
Well,
And it's basically taking blood from yourself and to spin it down. They're putting all this plasma into that injured joint space to try and do like really quick healing. And that helped like amazingly. And then working PT like 6 hours a day and then getting on snow. And it was a pretty crazy time, how fast I got back on snow. And it was actually up in Vancouver like in 2 weeks on a ski cross track after blowing my hip out. Like I took like a cortisol shot just for like little pain.
Yep.
Which is fine, but it's really like regulated pretty hard as far as anything. And I just want to do it. Like I was lined up and I was like, whatever, I can do everything possible to try and get back on skis and have this chance to do it. And I over skied myself. When I first got back on skis, I was trying to make it for lost time and my legs were just crushed. I had almost no energy in them when I finally got into the Olympic race day because I was trying to play catch up and I just skied the track a lot and wore myself down. I just didn't have the strength in that right leg.
Well, it's amazing that you got another trip to the Olympics because in 2006, it looks like the career's over, but really the career's just starting in a different way for you. And you get that X Games gold medal, which is something that in the States means more than all the stuff in Europe, I would think, to the kids that see you. I mean, the race kids, sure, they understand, but like everyone else probably thinks you're some rad extreme dude who's won the X Games now when they don't even realize all the shit that you've done before that.
Well, that was kind of a funny thing you just brought up there. I remember in Truckee, like the post office, and just running like a number of people after X Games, and everybody's like high-fiving me and stoked, and I never got that from a World Cup win.
Yeah.
You just don't see it. I mean, in Europe, it's a whole different deal, and these big names like Lindsay, Mikaela, Bode, like Liggety, the most recent, like skiers, they've done a lot of great things for our sport to bring it more into the mainstream, and so that's awesome, and you're on TV like 3 days a week, 4 days a week over in Austria and Switzerland as a ski racer. And maybe you're on TV for the Olympics every 4 years in the US.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a whole different deal. But I got bored like on a plane just telling people what I did just because they don't know. People don't know about it. Like ski racer, you make a living off that? Like you go to the Olympics? Yeah, but we're racing every single year, in the World Cup and world champs every other year. And I'm not a ski racer because of the Olympics. Different deal, but it's nice to educate people. And once you know more about something or you know someone involved or personality, like you're going to follow that person or whatever they do a little more closely.
For sure.
I'd say I don't have a big following, but I think I have a pretty strong following as far as community, more of a community-based following,
People told me that I had to interview Ralves. It wasn't like he'd been on my list, but it wasn't like I was going to harass you. I think I reached out to you a couple of years ago, but it never happened. But I've been getting emails recently like, hey, you've got to interview Ralph. So people want to know more about you.
Well, that's cool. And I'm still keeping this thing alive, and trying to stay in good shape. And like you said, you brought up Michelle's bar effect. And I've noticed the benefits. Like when I don't train, what I can't really do. But when I train, physically train, what I can do on skis and my strength and endurance levels. So I started doing these like mountain warrior courses and have some buddies doing that stuff with me. In the fall, I picked that back up in the spring, doing virtual classes. I'm doing this Airbnb athlete experience now. They are a big sponsor with the IOC for the Olympics now for about 9 years, I think.
Wow.
And so I do these, like I got one tomorrow where I just talk about the sport a little bit, but then take somebody through like a 40-minute training session. The stuff that I believe in, stuff that I've like learned from the U.S. Ski Team Sports Science Program, the Red Bull Athlete Performance Center. It's a lot more athletic based, single leg kind of like training. And I really noticed a difference. So I did like 21 sessions from like end of March till first week of June. And, it's kind of fun to get into routine and then get others fired up. When you get feedback like, man, I crushed this mountain bike ride harder than I have any year in the spring because of like all the sessions I've been doing with you or stuff like that. Like, the feedback is nice to hear. People recognize putting some training effort and then see how the reward is. Like, I don't train just to like get muscles. I'm not looking in the mirror and trying to flex, but I train because I want to be able to go out and hammer on my moto or my mountain bike and not be suffering as much.
Do you ever look in the mirror and flex?
Yeah, once in a while I say, but I'm not like driven to do that every day.
Checking.
Come on, man. You got to once in a while do that. It's funny because my boy, Drayson, he's probably 4 or 5 times a day he's flexing, showing me his like pecs and his like biceps. Like, dude, you got a little ways to go. It's awesome.
Well, in your career, you also do a lot of filming. Warren Miller, TGR, I think you might film with MSP too. You're skiing with some of the best people in the world. You are also one of those best people in the world, just taking it to different terrain. You also have the Ralves Bonsai Tour, which is kind of like an Asian country downhill. The series is pretty rad. You win, I think, most of your events, so eventually you have to pull yourself out and you take on the overall winner. That stuff we're not going to even talk about because that is done. What we're going to do now is talk about inappropriate questions because we have that again, even though you've already done it once. And this time I reached out to a mutual friend of both of ours, a very good friend of yours named Zach Christ. He is in Sun Valley and he has 4 children, which is crazy. But Zach goes way back with you. He was on the U.S. ski team before you started really succeeding. And when you won your first race, Zach was the dude you called. Zach has 3 questions, and I'm going to throw the first one out to you right now.
I love it. All right. Let's hear it, Z.
Daron, yeah, I've been asked to fire a few questions at you, one being an inappropriate, maybe delicate line to walk. But can you tell us a little bit about that night you had with another ski team friend of yours in Vancouver? A couple of ladies involved.
The lead up was my first World Cup points. I ever scored 23rd in a Super G up in Whistler. And that other teammate Zach's talking about is himself. And I forget the rest.
All right, we can leave it at that. He didn't think you were going to answer that question, but he threw it out there. Are you sure you don't want to let anybody know what happened?
It's a delicate line, like you said, yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll go to question number 2.
Daron, I can't remember where it originated, but your nickname, Chachi, seemed fitting at the time. Might still be fitting for a squeaky clean individual like yourself. Can you give us more detail on where that came from and why it seems to stick?
So I show up, we all fly in over to Europe, and I get this black leather coat on, and Bloomy, Click Bloomfield, it's like, hey, Fonz, what's happening? And he's like, yeah, your black leather coat. And I just like kind of had a little like, whatever, man, moment. And he's like, you know what? You're more like Chachi than the Fonz. I'm like, shut up, and just, it's just one of those things. Like, if you don't like a nickname somebody gives you and they just keep kind of like throwing it out there, it's sticking. And so I finally kind of ended up embracing it, and it kind of got trimmed down to Chach. And then I won world champs, and then my ski coach's kids were all fired up and they're like, yeah, D-Money. And then that kind of took over on the U.S. team, where Chach wasn't used anymore.
It's got to feel a lot cooler being called D-Money than Chachi.
Yeah, no kid, man. I'm glad that I suppressed that Chachi nickname a little bit, but it still comes up with the right people and get a good laugh out of it. But Zach and Bloomy and all those guys like Makar, they never let it die.
Well, I'm glad some people keep that going. We'll go to his final question.
Daron, we were tight, man. We were wingmen pretty much everywhere we went for a lot of years. And when I left, I guess that would have been late 90s, 98, I want to say. How did you cope? Were you able to stand on your own 2 feet? I can't imagine, but sure seems like you did after 12 victories and 28 podiums.
So how is it being able to exist without Zach Christ?
Shit, man, I had a lot cleaner room. That's for sure. That guy was the biggest mess. I remember chewing him out one time and throwing all his like clothes on the bed because, these Euro rooms are so tight. And I was like squeaky clean in a way. Like I like to have my stuff folded, put away, like up the side. And he's just a mess. And I remember like falling over on like a ski boot, going to the bathroom middle of the night and just got pissed off at him. But we were tight. We did a lot of stuff together. We free skied after the races. And I'd say he was one of those guys that was one of the best skiers that did not put together in racing because he was coming down to be too good, right? And wasn't getting loose enough and taking chances. But I learned a lot from Zach. And one thing I didn't miss from him was how messy of a roommate he was, how scatterbrained he was. And I'm honored, man. I'm a godfather to his son, Ridge. And we've done some, stuff like we finally reconnected. We went to Austria, took him to the Hahnenkamm, and we kind of like hosted a group. And that was his first time at the race.
Wow.
Ever. So it was kind of fun to show him around and host this group. And he's really incredible with people and the knowledge of skiing. And what he's doing right now with Sun Valley mountain guides is impressive. Like all the ski touring, backcountry huts up there in the Sawtooth. And if anybody's looking for a little ski adventure with the Sawtooth up in Idaho, anywhere around close to Sun Valley area, like I'd say connect with him, and he's got a killer, like, guide program set up and knows where to go, what to do.
He is the man, and he's an awesome dude, as you are as well. And you're the second person that I've done 2 podcasts with to capture your life in times. The first was Russell Winfield. We were in person, and he got a phone call in the middle of our podcast, and he's like, look, dude, I got to bounce. So that's why we did 2. You and I have done 2 because you have done so much shit in your life and times. We've only talked about 50, 60% of it. There's more that we're not going to talk about. I kind of mentioned it here and there, but you are the best American downhiller in history. There is no argument there. Hopefully there will be someone in the future that will beat you, and you will be there so you can congratulate them. But it is a pleasure and privilege to have you on the show, man, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, too, and keep rocking the red ski outfit you got on your profile picture. Love that thing, dude.
Oh, thank you, yeah, and I wish I still had that thing. That was from the Glacier in Whistler, man, from so long ago.
Well, that's something Zach Chris probably has, like a quiver, but he's so small, I can't fit in those things. So,
a smaller racer than you.
That's why I probably felt good around him so much. It's a little bigger than him. Our nickname for Zach was Camaroni, by the way.
Why is that?
Shrimp.
Sorry, I don't speak Spanish.
Anyways, man, good times, and I love those inappropriate questions, and just the build-up when you bring it up makes you smile, and it's a good highlight.
So that was time with Daron Rahlves, and what an impressive life that guy has lived. It's like everything has been beyond good, and he has always gotten more out of every situation because he always outworks everyone. I mean, Daron was going to be successful at something. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, had every opportunity and every advantage. The only thing he didn't have growing up was size. And a lot of people like that, well, they should be successful. And if they aren't, well, they usually fucked up bad along the way. But with Daron, while he had all the things, he never got complacent, and he always was out to win. So the life that he was born into, along with the drive that Daron has, creates a life that every single one of us would love to live. I mean, I'm sure there's some shitty aspects to it, but I really can't think of any. And on top of that, Daron was really great to chat with and had a lot to say with little filter. Daron proves that size doesn't matter, and I'm a bigger fan of the D now more than ever. That's the podcast for this week. I want to thank you for listening, ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on, and support my great sponsors. They are the 10 Barrel Brewery, Peter Glenn Sports, and Stanley. Have a great week, everyone.